There was news coming out that Sebastian Fundora versus Keith Thurman has been canceled and moved to a later date. They're saying that it's now been moved to January of 2026. And O'Shaquie Foster and Stephen Fulton was actually looked at to be a main event, but they're just going to probably scrap the whole event and move that fight to a later date as well. Reports coming out right now that that fight can land on a Manny Pacquiao or Roller Romero card with Keith Thurman and Fundora. I don't think once that fight gets moved, it'll still be a main event fight. It's a lot of fights that still happen in January. They might have a loaded card in January that PBC is leaning towards. Seems like they have a lot of moves they're trying to make, a lot of adjustments. We already know Lamont Roach was supposed to face Tank in August, and that got scrapped, and now Lamont Roach is fighting Pitbull in December. So I think the similar thing that happened with that situation will be happening with this situation. I don't know what was the main reason why, because the injury could be a reason why you pull the fight, but also we got to remember Keith Thurman got hurt prior to the Tim Tszyu fight, and that fight wasn't scrapped, even though it was, I don't know, it was close to the same amount of time right now that fight actually was pushed to the side and Fundora stepped in. We got to remember Fundora actually got the belt because Keith Thurman had got hurt. So I don't know. Keith Thurman just said recently that he had an opportunity to fight earlier this year. Some people said it was possibly a bull chuck. And, you know, with him training for fights, he kept training for fights that actually wasn't happening. And that kind of put him in a bad situation. He kept training for certain fights that just didn't happen. And now, with this situation, he's an older fighter. And now he's training for a fight that's possibly going to get pushed back even longer. He's always said that, you know, the fights are a part where it's definitely difficult. You know, it's not easy, but the training is what wears him down, the motivation, just staying in tune. But with Stephen Fulton and O'Shaquie Foster, this is the second time this fight has been moved. That fight was supposed to be on the Tank Davis and Lamont Roach card, and now it's being on the Sebastian Fundora and Keith Thurman card. But now that's being moved again. So this will be the third time that they'll actually move this event. And you got to remember, it's a lot of names on there. And they're going to have some big cards early next year. Even Frank Martin was supposed to be on this card, so they got to find a later date for him as well. But it's a lot of moves that can be made. Sometimes, like PBC has done the last year or two, they'll go away with certain cards and just add them all together. We know that even Caleb Plant was supposed to fight McCumbee on a main event. And then that ended up being, I think, the first fight on the main card of Canelo and Berlanga. So PBC usually they just compress a lot of these fights on one card. They'll move them around. It's a lot of moves being made right now. You know, PBC is still on Amazon Prime. They have a lot of fighters who's trying to get back involved and active. Keith Thurman right now is 36 years old. He's only fought once since 2022. And it's a long time, man. Very long time. So for him to be out even longer, even more months, after training for a while, be a huge setback for him. I think that he's the only person that will probably affect a little bit. They're talking about the recovery time of Fundora's hand injury. So we got to see. We really don't know. But the whole event, the last week or two, seems like it just didn't have that spark behind it. I've heard more about other fights than I have this fight, even though this fight is huge. It's a huge fight. Has a very good undercard as well. I don't know what they'll do with these fights. We got to remember, they still got Jesus Ramos and Shane Mosley Jr. So maybe they add these to the. We might see a lot of some of these fights on Lamont Roach versus Pitbull Cruz. Who knows? Might be a lot of fights that show up on that fight card. But, you know, guys are starting to cut weight and everything else. So this is going to be a lot of things that's going to happen out of this situation. But we know that PBC is going to be able to make a lot of moves out of this, because once you push a lot of these fights back, that gives them time to add more bigger fights onto the cards, as they've done in the past. You know, we've had situations where they pushed back fights, they couldn't find fights, and we ended up with Demetrius Andrade versus David Benavidez. So sometimes things like this happen just to make these cards a lot more, I would say, bigger than they were previously. And whatever Fundora does in this situation would be great, but because he's been fighting 2 times a year, trying to fight 3 times a year. Just situations happen, but I think this is gonna be a situation where a lot more bigger fights will be put together. But the fans, they probably were already in their mind preparing for Vegas. I don't know how many people was planning to already be out there for that fight, but the changes right here will definitely affect people on the outside, but on the inside as well. These boxers, the training and everything else is going to affect them. You know, guys having to retrain and do another camp after doing one camp. I bet Stephen Fulton, this will probably be his 3rd camp if they add more time to it. But other than that, for the fans, they're going to add a lot of big fights. There's still a lot of big fights coming up this month, early next month, with Lubin and a lot of other guys. So we'll see, but a lot of big moves still being made and a lot of changes. A lot of fights from PBC always been pushed back. It happens. Lamont Roach and Tank Davis last year. David Benavidez and Morrell. And you know what? That fight, the Lamont Roach and Tank Davis fight, got pushed back. We ended up with David Benavidez versus Morrell. So you never know. But we still have a lot of big fights out there that could get made early next year. You still got a lot of big fighters out there who's active and ready to get back in the ring. But I don't think this is going to affect too much. I don't think it's going to stop too much. I think a lot of things always come out of this in a good way. But as a fan, you know, people were preparing in their mind to see this fight. Especially in October, it's always an event that people want to go around and just support. Especially in October when it starts to get a little cold outside. People are in the house a lot more during the weekends now. But we'll see. We'll definitely see, man. Frank Martin was on that card with Francis Bartholomew, so we'll have to see what kind of changes they make. But I can definitely see them doing something early next year with, like they said, in January. They got that Pacquiao and Roller Romero fight that's being talked about. So we'll see what kind of cards they add together, but be a lot of adjustments made in the future.